there are some communities that will put the family value above women's safety. And when you look at
what do you want, Pxie? Oh boy.
Hi. Just like you were saying some things, and they kind of caught me off guard. So I'm just wondering. You talk a lot about family values and trying to perpetrate that, but then you also talk about how what was the culture you were referencing again? The one where you were saying family values above domestic violence.
Oh, then in Nigeria.
In Nigeria, right? So I just feel like there's a little bit of a contradiction there, because when it comes to households where there is like domestic abuse going on, the effects on those children for the long term are higher rates of criminality as well as mental illness. So you can't really like talk about, oh, like we have to lift the Black community up. We want less violence. We want them to go forward, while saying like, oh yeah, we should keep these family values in check, when those family values are actually toxic towards like the individual, especially the children in the short and long term. So I just feel like there's something there. Maybe you misspoke. I want to know what you mean exactly.
So okay, so let me just rephrase what you're saying so I understand what you're saying. So you feel like there's a contradiction in the putting family values above women's protection, because when there is rife within the family, children do tend to come out the same or just as bad as if they had a single parent.
Or worse.
Okay, so I'm talking from a completely economic basis. I'm not talking about what the psychology or all that stuff.
Oh, I'm talking psychological too.
I'm not. That's what I'm saying. We're coming from a different angle.
Oh no, I'm saying economically as well. Like the long-term impacts that an abused child has are.
That's just not true, child. That's just not true.
Okay, should we?
If you come from a single, listen, girl. If you have a single mother and you have a one income, you're not eating rice and chicken every night. I'm just not
disagreeing that single mother households have bad economic effects. What I'm saying is I'm comparing that to households where you have an abusive father or mother. That is what I'm saying. So you're saying like, oh no, single mother households are horrible, two-parent households are better. And I'm not disagreeing with that. But where I'm disagreeing with is two-parent households where abuse is happening in the home. That is a different story than just a two-parent household.
I hear you, girl. The thing is that, of course, it's gonna psychologically be a net negative in some ways, but ultimately, the safety net for that child, regardless of the mental illness, whether they come out with DID or not, is not an issue that I'm talking about. Maybe that's the case, and we can look into it.
Well, yes, but I'm certain that we can look into it, because the financial constraint or the financial effects that happen afterwards are like huge. And I don't even know if you can say there's really a safety net in an abusive household either, because are you really going to feel like safe enough to rely on your parents that just, hit you or beat the fuck out of you or hold things over your head constantly? Like there's a lot of things that go into a safety net. And at the end of the day, I don't think you can call an abusive household one with a valid safety net, I guess.
One thing at a time. The thing is, we can focus on fixing the mental abuse when we have the families. First and foremost, we need the families first before we start fixing the mental abuse in them. So the thing is, we can talk a lot about that. That is for sure, and maybe we'd have to get deep into the communities and in culture, and specifically, and we're talking about Nigeria, and I feel like that's not going to resonate with the stream right now. So maybe if we talked about like what's happening, like that, it's just one thing at a time. And I just feel like we need to get people to have an economic stability first. We have to just talk about economics first. Okay? Because the thing is that, listen, Black oppression, it's only oppression when it's on an economic and a racial line. It is on an axis, okay? It's when you're affected economically and racially. If you get your economics up, you're good. Like, it's not going to affect you the same way when you come out of that underclass. But we need to get people out of the underclass first. And if that means that we have to sacrifice a lot of the privileges that we're trying to fight for hard right now, then I think so be it, because I need to see my people prosperous before anything else.
Yeah.
Because there's no way we're going to beat the systemic system if we don't get our money up. And the way we're going to do that is safety nets, because the work ethic is not the problem.
Yeah, I think I don't necessarily disagree with you. I disagree with you on them being completely separate, right? Because the whole idea of like, how do people reach economic prosperity? How do people hold jobs? How do people get better jobs? That's very intimately intertwined with psychology. And if you're in a, let's say, like abusive household, right, where everything is unstable, that means that there's going to be long-term impacts on how you self-regulate, how you regulate with the world around you, and just like your mental stability and ability to uphold a job. So that's what I'm trying to say here, is that I understand where you're coming from, but when it comes to abusive households in specific, we have to be careful, because if you keep advocating for abusive households to stay together because there's some sort of structure there, what you're going to end up is having children who are really fucked up, who are economically going to suffer as well.
The thing is, I'm not advocating for abuse. I'm saying is that we have to put it above all the other issues that we're fighting for right now. So listen, I'm not advocating for abusive relationships. I am just saying that we need to get the relationships first, and then we can fix that. Like, I'm not saying that that's not an issue, but like, that's not the main issue of why systemic racism is perpetuating and people can't get out of that.
I guess I'm just a little bit confused on what you mean by relationships first. Like, you have to have people who stay together first, or
we need families. Okay. So the thing is, okay, when you come from a well-connected family, you have property, you have people that are going to lift you up. Even if you're not property, you have somewhere to stay. If you mess up, you get homeless. You have people that are going to love you unconditionally if you have a big family, and then you work within that network of people. That's a big thing. That's a big privilege that people are not aware that they have. That's the difference between a lot of between the races, is that like we don't have that stability. Okay. So we have to build that first, and then people can start actualizing themselves and build the community and use the income. They don't have to spend everything on their rent because they have a family home. Doesn't make sense. I'm not saying that these things are not important. I'm a woman. Of course, I'm not advocating for abuse. Like, I'm not going to put myself through anything. Like, but all I'm saying is that there's a big difference in, like, there are some communities that will put the family value above women's safety. And when you look at the differences between who is doing economically well and who isn't, it seems that like that is a big factor of it. They know who they are, they know where they come from, and that a part of that is having a family.
Yeah, I think I might just like fundamentally disagree with you in the aspect of like, basically what I'm trying to get at is that you can't really say you have a stable family or a good quote unquote family value if there is abuse in the household, because that in itself destroys the family financially and economically. Although I can agree with you on the idea that like we should try to have stronger families and stronger relationships like that, I would just caution you to be careful when it comes to the idea of like putting the family above the woman, because I would argue that a family who does such a thing is not a stable family. It's a family that is going to suffer through like, a shit ton of trauma, which is going to lead to like financial decline as well.
It is very traumatizing. And like, for me as well, like I'm not saying it's a good thing, by the way. I'm coming from a very like economic point of view. Does that make sense? Like, I see the things that happen to sometimes I'm like, girl, you need to divorce him. It's so bad. And like, it's just instilled in a lot of people. It's just like, I have to stay for my kids. And I'm just talking about this kind of mentality is what is letting these communities be more prosperous as a whole. Because work ethic
Wait, aren't those kinds of families like really fucked? Does that even work?
It does work. They're doing very well.
Having shitty families stay together where the people are like, I don't know if I should stay in this marriage, but I should for my children. Is that really like a good thing?
Just destiny.
That's my name.
When you live in a nice house and you know that, okay, if I try to make something of myself, I'm gonna be okay. If you have that safety net, that's above anything else, any psychology stuff.
But the point is, abusive families don't have that safety net, right? The whole idea of like, I can rely on my parents isn't going to work if you think your parents are going to beat the fuck out of you.
Well, why are we assuming that all marriage is abusive?
No, I'm not assuming all marriages are abusive.
Like, I'm saying
specifically families where where the mom feels like they have to stay there because of their children, even though the dad is being abusive. That's what I'm specifically talking about.
I just think there's value there. That's what I'm saying. Can you see the value in it, Stephen? Stephen, help me out.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but it sounds like you're saying that like even abusive families should stay together because it's better for the children.
I'm not saying they should stay together. I'm not advocating for abusive families, okay? What I'm saying is you can see there's a big difference in the ones that hold family values very highly, to the point where they will even put up with abuse to keep them there. Okay. That was my point. I'm not talking about the abuse, like the whole, that was an ad lib. That was an ad lib. That's gonna be okay? Like, it's not the main point. It's that even, like, it's just, I'm just saying that when family is highly valued and that people stay together, their kids, there's a certain type of confidence you have, and that is way more, they should be way more valued in our current culture.
Okay.
Why?
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
Why?
Pxie, what she's saying is that like families that value staying together so much so that they tolerate abusive families, those are better societies, even if there are some abusive families. But ideally, you wouldn't have any abusive families, but that like the ones that value family are so important that it's, yeah, that's what she.
I need a chip clip so bad.
What? Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Wait, Pxie, does it make sense what she's saying? I'm not asking you if it makes sense. I'm asking.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can now. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense in a macro level, right? Family or cultures that have family values could tend to do better than cultures that don't.
Yeah.
It's just upholding family values above abuse. That statement is iffy for me personally.
It's
but I
an iffy
understand what you
statement.
mean
It is.
at a macro level. Like, yes, we should have family values.
I appreciate that, Destiny.
All right. Bye.
Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.